He also did a lot of good things.
Like he was doing many sacrifices.
And pious activities, helping the citizens, taking care of them, all that also good. So we only see one thing, right? We only see the bad thing, the good thing.
So Prabhu, that means if he's just simply anyone who simply follows his occupational duty, then also he will be blessed by the Lord. Because if he is
to some extent, not necessarily. I mean, it depends on the so many factors. I can't tell you because it's too much. Karma, you can't understand. Why certain people get that. Same person can be in the same family and not get the same thing, right? So in his case, Prabhupada says he did a lot of pious activities. Therefore he got that opportunity. Right? And we do not know what else he may have done, some Agyata Sukriti. Or as you say, Yadricha. Somehow. Text 2. Naradu Vacha Purusham Puranjanam Vidya Yadvyanakti Atmanapuram Ekadvitri Chatuspadam Bahupadam Apadakam. Great sage Narada continued, you must understand the Puranjana, the living entity, transmigrates according to his own work into different types of bodies, which may be one-legged, two-legged, three-legged, four-legged, many-legged, or simply legless. Transmigrating to these various types of bodies, the living entity as the so-called enjoyer is known as Puranjana. Text 3. Yo vijñāta hritastasya purushasya sakeshvaraha yanna vijñāyate kumbhir namabhirva kriyagunai. The person I have described as unknown is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Master and eternal friend of the living entity. Since the living entities cannot realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead by material names, activities or qualities, he remains everlastingly unknown to the conditioned soul. The Lord is always unknown to the conditioned soul unless they take up devotional service. So he is sometimes therefore described as Nirakara, Avigyata or Avanvanasa Gochara. Okay? So unless one performs bhakti, he is always unknown to the conditioned. So bhakti amam avijanati. Otherwise it's not possible to understand the Supreme Lord. Right? So they have to use all the material faculties they are given, the material body, in the service of Krishna, to purify it. Then they can understand the Supreme Lord with their material senses, or so-called spiritualized senses. Because the name, form, qualities, pastimes of the Lord cannot be understood by material senses. It has to be purified. And therefore he is known as Adoksaja, beyond sense perception. Only devotees can understand the Supreme Lord. No one else can understand. Text 4. Yada jigrikshan purushaha Atsnyena prakrite guna Navadvaram dvihastangri Tatra manuta sadviti. When the living entity wants to enjoy the modes of material nature in their totality, he prefers out of many bodily forms to accept that body which has 9 gates, 2 hands and 2 legs. Thus he prefers to become a human being or a animal body. The reason he wants a human form is because that's the best body to enjoy. You can take many living entity forms, but the best is the human form or demigod form. therefore he prefers that kind of body. Prabhupada also mentions in the purports that very first time, in the previous chapter also we heard that very first time the living entity comes into the material universe, the first form he accepts is human-like body or Brahma. And gradually, due to his degraded consciousness and so on, he goes down to lower forms. And so then he gets into the 8.4 million species. Because he wants to enjoy different things, different types of things, and therefore is given different body. So the propensity is to enjoy is there in the heart, and therefore they enjoy in different conditioned body, you can say like that. Okay. So some people are intelligent, they understand these things shouldn't be enjoyed, so they stop it. Others, they think it must be enjoyed, so they take up abominable enjoyment. And then they get even more degraded. So this is actually what we call transmigration, or you can say evolution. Animals only enjoy one or two senses. The human form enjoy all the senses. That's why the living entity wants to be in the human form. He can enjoy by watching, smelling, tasting, everything. Whereas animals, you can see, right? The dog only, he has only the ability to smell. So that's what he enjoys, good things, bad things, whatever. But he enjoys smelling. Then the pig enjoys eating. So like that. Okay, different living entities. So if the human being, because he has a tendency to enjoy all the senses, if he's not trained properly, then it's going to be very difficult for him to understand or control himself from the modes of material nature. And then he becomes a victim like that. So therefore it's important to control or learn to control from a very young age. Okay. Text 5. Buddhim tu paramadam vidyam mamaham idiyakritam yam adhisthaya dehesmin puman bhunte akshabir gunan. The great sage Narada continued, the word pramada mentioned in this regard refers to material intelligence or ignorance. It is to be understood as such. When one takes shelter of this kind of intelligence, he identifies himself with the material body. Influenced by the material consciousness of I and mind, he begins to enjoy and suffer through his senses. Thus the living entity is entrapped. So Prabhupada says in the purport, in material existence, so-called intelligence is actually ignorance. Because material intelligence only points to sense enjoyment. When that intelligence is cleared up or purified, it is called buddhi yoga. In other words, when intelligence is dovetailed with the desires of Krishna, it is called buddhi yoga or bhakti yoga. Then one acts according to the desires of Krishna. Okay? So in the same way, if one is qualified, then the Lord from the heart speaks to him. Right? So in the last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada writes, in towards the middle, nothing belongs to the living entity, but he claims that everything belongs to him. Right? He gets something, he thinks it's his, but nothing belongs to him, because when he dies, that's everything it. Somebody will come and pick it and go. That's how it is. So therefore, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, first we need to purify our false intelligence, and the process of doing it is through the chanting, Harina. So chanting is very important. No matter what position, level you are in, one shouldn't give up chanting. So Cheto Darpana Marjana, to clean or cleanse the heart, the mirror in our heart. Prabhupada says when the mirror of intelligence is polished, then the real activities of the living entity begin. What is the real activity? Doing it for the pleasure of Krishna. That is our constitutional position. Okay, then we are using the true intelligence. Otherwise, if you don't use the intelligence for serving Krishna, you will use your intelligence for sense gratification. No choice. It's either one or the other. There's no in-between deals. You're either Krishna conscious or you're in Maya conscious. Text 6. Sakaya Indriya Gana Jnanam Karma Cha Yat Kritam Sakyastat Vritaya Pranaha Panchavritti Yato Raga. The 5 working senses and the 5 senses that acquire knowledge are all male friends of Puranjani. The living entity is assisted by these senses in acquiring knowledge and engaging in activity. The engagements of the senses are known as girlfriends, and the serpent, which was described as having 5 heads, is the life acting within the 5 circulatory processes. So Narada is explaining to the king the allegorical example he was given. So what is the senses? What is the snake? Who is this person? So he's trying to make it easy for the king to understand. But he said, I just can't understand what you're talking about. Okay, so Prabhupada talks about that in the purport, basically. So text 7. Brihad balam mano vidya Bhayendriyanayakam Panchala pancha vishaya Yanmadye navakam puram. You see, the senses are known as Vishaya. Vishaya also means
enjoyment,
poison.
Yes.
The 11th attendant, who is the commander of the others, is known as the mind. He is the leader of the senses both in the acquisition of knowledge and in the performance of work. The Panchala kingdom is that atmosphere in which the 5 sense objects are enjoyed. Within that Panchala kingdom is the city of the body, which has 9 gates. Basically, it's describing the body and how the living entity uses his senses, particularly the mind, to enjoy. So the mind, Prabhupada says, is the center of all activities, and is described here as Brihat Bala, means very powerful. So unless we can control the mind, it's going to bury us wherever it wants to. Okay? So therefore, it is very important to start training from a very young age. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult to subdue the senses. The senses will then decide, I want to enjoy this, I want to enjoy that. Then the mind will say, okay, let's do it. Because the mind wants to also enjoy. So you say, okay, let's do it. Then if the mind is stronger than the intelligence, then the intelligence will say, okay, this is the way to enjoy. Like that. Right? But when the intelligence is purified, then the intelligence will say, this is wrong. You're not supposed to do this. So then the mind will fight back and say, no, it's only one time, like that. And the intelligence will say, no, one time it's finished, then you'll do all the time. Right? So that is the reason why you have to start training, so that the mind is always engaged in at least devotional service to some extent. Okay? And if you can control your mind from all the nonsense, then you're a Goswami. Otherwise you are the Godas. Text 8. Akshini Nashike Karnau Mukam Mukam Shishna Gudaviti
Mukam Shishna Gudaviti
Dve Dvarau Bahiryati
Dve Dvarau Bahiryati
Yastadindriya Samyutaha
Yastadindriya Samyutaha.
The eyes, nostrils and ears are pairs of gates situated in one place. The mouth, genital and rectum are also different gates. Being placed into a body having these 9 gates, the living entity acts externally in the material world and enjoys sense objects like form and taste. Right? So as long as he is associating with matter, he tries to enjoy it. Next 9. Akshini Nashike Ashyam
Akshini Nashike
Iti Pancha Purakritaha
Iti Pancha Purakritaha
Dakshina Dakshina Karna
Dakshina Dakshina Karna
Uttara Chottara Smritaha
Uttara Chottara Smritaha
Paschime Iti Ado Dvarau
Paschime Iti Ado Dvarau
Udam Shishnam Ihochyate
Udam Shishnam Ihochyate.
2 eyes, 2 nostrils and a mouth, altogether 5, are situated in the front. Is that right? Don't count and then you're missing 1 or 2. The right ear is accepted as the southern gate and the left ear is the northern gate. The 2 holes or gates situated in the west are known as the rectum and genital. So which ear is for rituals and which ear is for intelligent spiritual activity?
Right is for
Left is for spiritual.
spiritual.
Left is for spiritual,
Right for karma.
rituals and so on. Right is for
Karma.
karma kanda, rituals. But when you get Gayatri, it is at your right ear. The transcendental knowledge doesn't matter which ear. But it was given as the right ear. Text 10. Kadyuta Virmukhi Chatra Netre Katra Nirmite Rupam Viprajitam Tavyam Chaste Chakshusheshwaraha. The 2 gates named Kadyotha and Avirmukhi, which have been spoken of, are the 2 eyes side by side in one place. A town named Vibrajita should be understood as form. In this way, the 2 eyes are always engaged in seeing different kinds of forms. Okay. The eye is, element in the eye is fire. So we can only see if there's light or fire. So therefore anything that glitters is attractive to the eyes. Next 11. Nalini Nalini Nase
Nalini Nalini Nase
Gandha Saurabha Uchyate
Gandha Saurabha Uchyate
Grano Vaduto Mukyasyam
Grano Vaduto Mukyasyam
Vipano Vagrasa Vitrasaha.
Vipano Vagrasa Vitrasaha.
2 doors named Nalini and Nalini should be known as the 2 nostrils, and the city named Saurabha represents aroma. The companion spoken of as Avaduta is the sense of smell. The door called Mukhya is the mouth, and Vipana is the faculty of speech. Rasatya is the sense of taste.
Senses.
This again, yeah, all the senses. Text 12. Apano vyavaharotra
Apano Vyavaharotra
Chitram Ando Bahudanam
Chitram Ando Bahudanam
Pitrihu Dakshina Karna
Pitrihu Dakshina Karna
Uttara Devahu Smritaha.
Uttaro Devahu Smritaha.
The city called Apana represents engagement of the tongue in speech, and Bahudana is a variety of foodstuffs. The right ear is called the gate of Pitrihu and the left ear is called the gate of Devahu. Text 13. Pravritam cha nivritam cha
Pravritam cha nivritam cha
Shastram panchala samyitam
Shastram panchala samyitam
Vitriyanam devayanam
Vitriyanam devayanam
Srotrachruta dharadvaje.
Shotrachruta
Narada Muni continued. The city spoken of as Dakshina Panchala represents the scriptures meant for directing pravritti, the process of sense enjoyment in fruitive activities. The other city named Uttara Panchala represents the scriptures meant for decreasing fruitive activities and increasing knowledge. The living entity receives different kinds of knowledge by means of 2 years. And some living entities are promoted to Pitriloka and some to Devaloka. All this is made possible by the 2 years. So depending on what we want to hear,
Go there.
that's what we will act on. Whatever we don't like, even when someone tells you, you will not hear. Right? You've seen that, right? Even with, particularly with children, right? Tell them don't do that, but they'll say yes, and then as soon as you go, they'll do it. Right? And then yes. Yeah. So it's like that. So in that sense, even people are like that. If they don't like it, if you tell them, it's not going to work very well in the circumstance. Best is we must have a kind of relationship with anyone before we can have or we can help them. Unless there's a kind of relationship that they believe in you, no matter what you say, they'll just say whatever, whatever, let him say whatever he wants. Like that. So if you can hear properly, you can go back to Godhead. That's basically what it means. Text 14. Asuri midhram arvakdvar
Asuri midram arvadvar
Yavayo graminam rati
Yavayo graminam rati
Vasto durmada propto
Vastu durmata prokto
Niritir guda uchate.
Niritir vadavustate.
The city called Gramaka, which is approach through the lower gate of Asuri, the genital, is meant for sex, which is very pleasing to common men who are simply fools and rascals. The faculty of procreation is called Durmada and the rectum is called Nirriti. So Prabhupada says from these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam, however, we understand that the desires for sexual satisfaction are meant for the Arvak, the lowest among men. So basically, transcendental activities means we have to stop all these activities. We're just supposed to go back to Godhead. That's the main thing. Of course, the Prajapatis have a different role, but the common men are not Prajapatis. So they are more enjoyers. So that's a difference. So Prabhupada considers them simply fools and rascals or lowest among men. And then a couple of lines down, Prabhupada says, although this clearly indicates that sex indulgence is abominable and misdirected even from the ordinary point of view, the Sahajiyas nonetheless pass themselves off as devotees conducting spiritual activities. So there are a group of people who act like they are spiritualists, but they loosely conduct themselves in terms of sense and sexual indulgences. For this reason, Vrindavan is no longer visited by intelligent men. Okay, a lot of people avoid it. Sometimes we often ask why we have made our center in Vrindavan. From the external point of view, it can be concluded that Vrindavana has become degenerate due to these Sahajiya activities. Yet from the spiritual point of view, Vrindavana is the only place where all these sinful persons can be rectified. How is that going to happen? By means of taking birth in the forms of dogs, hogs and monkeys. What happens is, if you go to Vrindavan and do these Sahaja activities, sexual activities, next life you become a dog, a pig, a monkey in Vrindavan. And then by living in Vrindavan as a dog, hog or monkey, the living entity can be elevated to the spiritual platform in the next life. So they die, they go to Vaikuntha after that. So that's the benediction as well as the punishment. So you see, the animals in Vrindavan, they really suffer. They really suffer. Huh?
How do they suffer, Prabhu?
They really suffer. People beat them, they're always
Extreme
disease.
brothers.
They get
If you see the monkeys all over the body, you'll see the biting of other monkeys.
fighting,
dogs.
scratching. It's really not a good life for them. Pigs also, I've seen people go with sticks and hit them. The pigs are crying with tears and squealing and running, because these people there, they kill to eat it also. Yeah. So they really suffer. They get bitten and then they are in the drain, it's terrible, huh? The drainage there, and they are living there, they are all suffering. Dogs will have all kinds of things hanging out, they get bitten, and I've seen how these dogs come to the built up areas, and if the dog is a stranger, all the dogs in the village will come out and bite this dog. And this dog will have to go through all the, like a gauntlet, Such a suffering they go through. So that's what happens if you commit sinful activities in Vrindavan.
One more time, Prabhu. What does this mean? Vrindavan is no longer visited by intelligent men?
Yeah, externally it's so degraded, people don't go there. Yeah. You can see all these intelligent people, they don't go there. They avoid this place because they are... Now you see, even now, a lot of devotees don't want to go to Vrindavan because of all the gundas, the thieving, the stealing. So they go at a certain time when there are not many people.
But Prabhu, I'm remembering one pastime where Prabhupada said that one of the devotees said that Prabhu, why you said Vrindavan is so beautiful, what I see is sewage and everything, and then Prabhupada said you have a material speck in your eyes.
Yeah.
So then,
Different things.
how to understand? I'm not getting this actually.
Alright, then let you wait until later, then we can talk about it. Text 15. Vaishasham narakam payur Dako andau tu me shrinu Astapadau pumam stavyam Yukto yati karoti cha. When it is said that Puranjana goes to Vaishasha, it is meant that he goes to hell. It is accompanied by Lubdaka, which is the working sense of the rectum. Formerly, I have also spoken of two blind associates. These associates should be understood to be the hands and legs. Being held by the hands and legs, the living entity performs all kinds of work and moves hither and thither. Text 16. Antapuram cha hridayam Vishuchir mana uchyate Tatra moham prasadam va Harsham prapnoti tadgunai. The word Antapura refers to the heart. The word Vishuchina, meaning going everywhere, indicates the mind. Within the mind, the living entity enjoys the effects of the modes of material nature. These effects sometimes cause illusion, sometimes satisfaction, and sometimes jubilation. According to what you associate, the mind gets to be habituated in that kind of consciousness. If you hang around with drunks, then after a while you also think like a drunk. If you hang around with people who are spiritualists, you take up the process also. So the mind gets used to that, and then he wants to feel that way. So Prabhupada says the heart feels satisfaction, jubilation or illusion according to the effects of the modes of material nature. So again,
Jubilation
how
is-
you associate. Huh?
Jubilation is mode of passion, yes.
Yes. Text 17. Yatha yata vikriyate gunakto vikaroti va tata tato padrastatma vritir anukaryate.
Tadvritir.
Formerly it was explained that the queen is one's intelligence. While one is awake or asleep, that intelligence creates different situations. Being influenced by contaminated intelligence, the living entity envisions something and simply imitates the actions and reactions of this intelligence. Okay? That's how your intelligence is also contaminated. That's 18 to 20. Dehoratastu indriyashvaha
Dehoratasva indriyashvaha.
samvatsara rayogati
Samvatsara rayogati.
vikarma chakrastri guna
Vikarma chakrasti guna.
dvaja panchasu bandhuraha
Raja panchasu bandhuraha.
manorasmir buddhi suto
Manorashmir buddhi suto.
Rinnido dvandva kubaraha
Rinmido dvanda kubaraha.
Panchendriyartha prakshepaha
Panchendriyartha prakshepaha.
Saptadhatu varutakaha
Saptadhatu varutakaha.
Akuti vikramo bayo
Ahutir vikramo bahyo.
Mriga trishnam pradhavati
Mrigatrishnam pradhavati.
Ekadasendriya chamuhu
Ekadasindriya chamu.
Panchasuna vinodakrit.
Panchasuna vinodakrit.
Narada Muni continued, what I referred to as the chariot was in actuality the body. The senses are the horses that pull that chariot. As time passes, year after year, these horses run without obstruction, but in fact they make no progress. Pious and impious activities are the two wheels of the chariot. The three modes of material nature are the chariot's flags. The five types of life hire constitute the living entity's bondage, and the mind is considered to be the rope. Intelligence is the chariot driver. The heart is the sitting place in the chariot, and the dualities of life, such as pleasure and pain, are the knotting place. The seven elements are the coverings of the chariot, and the working senses are the five external processes. The 11 senses are the soldiers, being engrossed in sense enjoyment. The living entity seated on the chariot hankers after fulfillment of his false desires and runs after sense enjoyment, life after life. Alright, so he goes into every time the same cycle. So Prabhupada says samvatsara, meaning the progress of time is significant. Right? Because he's continuously trying to enjoy and get something in his body, but actually he's not getting anything. He's always hankering. So that's the reason why it is never moving, even though the chariot is seen to be running. So Prabhupada also says the chariot rests on two wheels, which are pious and impious activities. The living entity attains a certain position in life in a particular type of body according to his pious and impious activities. Alright. And in the last paragraph, towards the middle, Prabhupada says the living entity is influenced by a thirst for sense enjoyment. Okay. So he compares the living entity to a deer. He is like a deer that goes to the desert to search out water. In a desert, an animal simply searches in vain for water. Of course, there's no water in the desert, and the animal simply sacrifices its life in an attempt to find it. So basically, everyone is planning for future happiness, but it's never going to happen. So that's a reality that Prabhupada wants to make us understand. Text 21. Samvatsaraschandavega
Samvatsaraschandavega
Kaloyenopalakshitaha
Kaloyenopalakshitaha
Tasyaha haniya gandharva
Tasyaha niha gandharva
Gandharvyoratraya smitaha
Gandharvyoratraya smitaha
Arantiyayu parikrantya
Arantiyayu parikrantya
Sasti uttara satatrayam.
Sastiyuttara satatrayam.
What was previously explained as Chandaveda, powerful time, is covered by days and nights named Gandharvas and Gandharvis. The body's lifespan is gradually reduced by the passage of days and nights, which number 360. That's about 1 year. So he loses his life every year. That's 22. Kalakanya jara shaksha
Kalakanya jara shaksha
Lokastana vinandati
Lokastana vinandati
Swasaram jagrihe mrityu
Swasaram jagrihe mrityu
Shayaya yavaneshwaraha
Shayaya yavaneshwaraha.
What was described as Kalakanya should be understood as old age. No one wants to accept old age, but Yavaneshwara, Yavanaraja, whose death accepts Jara, old age, as his sister. Okay, so that means one has to get old and then you'll die. That's basically what it is. That's 23. Adayo vyadayastasya
Adayo vyadayastasya
Sainika yavanascharaha
Sainika yavanascharaha
Bhutopasarga suraya
Bhutopasarga suraya
Prajvaro dvivido jvaraha
Prajvaro dvivido jvaraha
Evam bahuvida dukkai
Evam bahuvida dukkai
Daiva bhutatma sambhavai
Daiva bhutatma sambhavai
Vishyamana shatam varsham
Vishyamana satam varsham
Dehe dehi tamovritaha
Dehi tamovritaha
Pranendriya manodharma
Pranendriya manodharma
Atmani adyasya nirgunaha
Atmani adyasya nirgunaha
Sete kamalavandhyayan
Sete kamalavandhyayan
Mamaham iti karma krit.
Mamaham iti karma krit.
The followers of Yavaneshwara, Yamaraj, are called the soldiers of death, and they are known as the various types of disturbances that pertain to the body and mind. Prajvara represents two types of fever, extreme heat and extreme cold, typhoid and pneumonia. The living entity lying down within the body is disturbed by many tribulations pertaining to providence, to other living entities, and to his own body and mind. Despite all kinds of tribulations, the living entity, subjected to the necessities of the body, mind and senses, and suffering from various types of diseases, is carried away by many plans due to his lust to enjoy the world. Although transcendental to this material existence, the living entity, out of ignorance, accepts all these material miseries under the pretext of false egoism, I and mine. In this way, he lives for 100 years within this body. So, Prabhupada talks about this thing, and he has discussed this thing previously also. But in the last paragraph, Prabhupada says, knowing the basic misery of material existence, one should be induced to get out of the material clutches and return home back to Bhakti. Right? We should appreciate what this Narad Muni is saying. And what is that? That this place is just a place of misery. We cannot pretend and say, I will have a better life. It's not going to happen. Because you have, as Narad Muni said, there will be disturbance from three types of disturbance. Adhyatmika, Adibhautika, Adidevi. So They will be there. You cannot stop it. And according to providence, you will get what you deserve. So therefore, we should understand this material existence is not our existence. So try to get out of this place. Means you do more devotional service. Text 26, 27. Yadatmanam avijñāya
Yadatmanam avijñāya
Bhagavantam param gurum
Bhagavantam param gurum
Purushastu visajjeta
Purushastu visajjeta
Guneshu prakrite swadrik
Guneshu prakrite swadrik
Gunabhimani satada
Gunabhimani satada
Karmani kurute vasaha
Karmani kurute vasaha
Shuklam Krishnam lohitam va
Shuklam Krishnam lohitam va
Yata karma vijayate
Yata karma vijayate.
The living entity by nature has minute independence to choose his own good or bad fortune. But when he forgets his Supreme Master, the personality of Godhead, he gives himself up onto the modes of material nature. Being influenced by the modes of material nature, he identifies himself with the body and for the interest of the body becomes attached to various activities. Sometimes he is under the influence of the mode of ignorance, sometimes the mode of passion, and sometimes the mode of goodness. The living entity thus gets different types of bodies under the modes of material nature. Right? Karanam gunasamvasta saraswati This is what Prabhupada quotes. And therefore he goes through 8.4 million species. So we are part and parcel of the Lord. We are supposed to learn that we are meant to serve Him and not be entangled in this material world. We are separate living entity, not the same. We are same as Krishna, but we are not Krishna. We are His servants. So Prabhupada wants us to understand that the Mayavadis don't understand this simple knowledge. They are because they are under the illusion of material nature.
So you said Ravindra Swarup yesterday, so I went and listened to some lectures today. It's very confusing actually. Better to stay away from that.
Better to stay away from that.
I listened 2 lectures and gave up.
Right.
Mayavad, Ravindra Swarup Prabhu gave in Vrindavan.
Yes, it's a whole course, very deep, but...
And even the students who were asking questions, they were also getting confused.
Yes.
So it's better to...
Better to stay
Om
away.
Tat Sat.
So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, don't get into their basket.
Bhasha Sunile Sarva Vai Sarvanash.
Yeah, run away. So don't get involved. Text 28. Shukla Prakasha Bhuyishta
Shukla Prakasha Bhuvishta
Lokanapnoti Karhichit
Lokanapnoti Karhichit
Dukho Darkham Kriyayasham
Dukho Darkham Kriyayasham
Tamashokot Katan Kochit
Tamashokot Katan Kochit.
Those who are situated in the mode of goodness act piously according to Vedic injunctions. Thus they are elevated to the higher planetary systems where the demigods live. Those who are influenced by the mode of passion engage in various types of productive activities in the planetary systems where human beings live. Similarly, those influenced by the mode of darkness are subjected to various types of misery and live in the animal kingdom. Right? So you have the higher planetary systems, middle and lower planetary systems. 14 planetary systems. So those who are more of passion stay in Burloka and Bhuvarloka. And then those who are in the mode of goodness stay in Brahmaloka, Satyaloka same, then Tapaloka, Janaloka and Mahaloka. And then the rest Atala, Vitala, Sutala, Tala, Tala, Mahatala, Satala,
Auto.
or they go into the animal kingdom.
Or animal kingdom there or here?
Here or there, it doesn't matter.
With the exception of the animals who are in Vrindavan because they have special privileges.
Yes, with the exception. They are also in ignorance, but they are special.
Special privileges to go to Vaikuntha.
So basically in this planet, generally in more of passion, we take birth here. So here we want to do something, some kind of activity. And if it's Krishna conscious, it's great. But generally they don't. They do all kinds. You see, like in China, you can see in Africa, Mexico, how much they act and produce stuff and create so much problems for society in general. So this kind of activity is known as Ugra Karma.
There are at least 1,000 tablet versions right now. Whether it's needed or not needed.
They keep churning it out. Every year there will be a new one. And the old one, what is happening, nobody knows. Right? They give it away free or dump it in the ocean, who knows. So it causes so much distressful for people engaged in such an activity. So much distress. Okay? So therefore, according to what you want and what you attach to, you will take birth in one of these planetary systems. And because of your karma, sometimes you are known as a superior living entity and sometimes you are known as an inferior living entity, but actually you are a Jivatma.
The problem is people are doing Ugra Karma and pious activities side by side.
That may be.
But
they give some charity, they do this
Yeah,
and
so
that.
they have both reactions will be there. Just like King Puranjana also. He did bad activity and good activity. So they will balance out. He'll suffer something and he'll also reap the benefit. But it's not the solution. Pious and impious activities are not the solution for life. Because the problem is still there. I'm taking birth. As long as you take birth, you're going to make some mistake. Right? It's not like you're going to make perfect choices. Nobody makes perfect choices. Only through the service of Krishna and the devotees, the choices become purified and perfect like that. You perfect your life that.
So here Prabhupada doesn't mention about Swargaloka. Should we understand it is like a combination of passion and goodness? Yeah.
Swargaloka is passion.
No, it says only Bhuloka and Bhuloka.
Yeah, it's
It's
more of
combination
goodness
of and passion.
and passion, you can say.
Oh, mixed mode.
Mixed mode.
That's 29. Kvachit Puman, Kvachit Shastri,
Kvachit Puman, Kvachit Shastri,
Kvachino Bhayam Andadi,
Kvachino Bhayam Andadi,
Devo Manusyastiryadva,
Devo Manusyastiryadva,
Yatha Karma Gunam Bhavaha,
Yatha Karma Gunam Bhavaha.
Covered by the mode of ignorance and material nature, the living entity is sometimes a male, sometimes a female, sometimes a eunuch, sometimes a human being, sometimes a demigod, sometimes a bird, an animal, and so on. In this way, he is wandering within the material world. His acceptance of different types of bodies is brought about by his activities under the influence of the modes of nature. So you see, even in the scripture it says sometimes you are male, sometimes you are female, or sometimes in between. The Prabhupada writes eunuch, but it's actually in between. So you can see nowadays how people are like
So many shades of transgender.
Yes, yeah. So it's interesting. So it's all in the scripture already. People are like that.
Theory of evolution is given
Huh?
here. Theory of evolution is given here.
Yeah. Basically that's how it is. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada discusses a lot about how Maya covers the living entity and how he identifies with he himself being the enjoyer, or sometimes he thinks he is God himself, all like that, alright? And the only way he gets out of this difficult situation is when he meets with the devotee,
Devotees.
yeah, or a spiritual master, and then he understands his constitutional position. And when he understands then that he is actually unnecessarily enjoying the material nature, then he becomes disgusted with living in this situation. So when he comes to that stage of being disgusted, then he can give up. But if he thinks he's still enjoying and it's okay, then he cannot give up this material nature. So he's not really purified sufficiently.
But even if disgusted, we have to still go through some motions.
Yeah, that is motion, but it's not like he wants to enjoy it. So practically you can see, as long as Maya is covering him, he doesn't know who he is. Sometimes he's an animal, sometimes he's a demigod or whatever. He really doesn't know. And the only way he can understand who he is when he gets a spiritual master or some guide, which is what Sanatana Goswami does when he goes and meet Lord
Sri
Chaitanya and he says, "Who am I?" You know.
People call me Pandit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh?
Kiyami.
Kiyami. Yeah, it's a famous thing. Say, who am I? People say I'm a great soul who knows everything, but actually I do not know who I am. Right? Yeah. Text 31. Shutparito yata dinaha
Shutparito yata dinaha
Sarameyo graham graham
Sarameyo griham griham
Charan vindati yadishtam
Charam vindati yadrishtam
Dandam modaname bhava
Dandamodaname bhava
Takamashayo jiva
Takamashayo jiva
Uchavachapata brahman
Uchavachapata brahman
Upariyadova madhyeva
Upariyadova madhyeva
Yati dishtam priya priyam
Yatidishtam priya priyam.
The living entity is exactly like a dog who overcome with hunger goes from door to door for some food. According to his destiny, he sometimes receives punishment and is driven out, and at other times receives a little food to eat. Similarly, the living entity, being influenced by so many desires, wanders in different species of life according to destiny. Sometimes he is high and sometimes he is low. Sometimes he goes to the heavenly planets and sometimes to hell. Sometimes to the middle planets and so on. So it never ends. Just continue and on. In the purport, Prabhupada says, the living entity's position is here likened to a dog's. By chance, a dog may have a very rich owner. It means he takes birth in America. And by chance, he may become a street dog in Vrindavan or in India somewhere. As the dog of a rich man, he will live very opulently. Sometimes in Western countries, we hear of a master leaving millions of dollars to a dog in his will. We talked about that. Or cat, or monkey, or bird, or whatever. Of course, there are many dogs loitering in the street without food. Therefore, to liken the conditional existence of the living entity to that of a dog is very appropriate. So Prabhupada says it's best he becomes Krishna's dog. Okay? Because Krishna's dog is always happy. Because there's dog in the spiritual world also.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur sang a song.
Huh?
Bhaktivinoda Thakur's song was.
What do you say?
It is a song like Vaishnava.
Oh,
I'm your dog.
Kukura Bali. Yes, the songs. So Prabhupada also say getting a degree or education is like being like a dog. So once you get a certificate from your college, so you go and meet these people for interview, then you like a dog begging, take me, I need a master. So they'll say, go away from here, go away, we don't have job for you. Then you like a dog, go to the next guy. Like they're begging like a dog. It's interesting, but that's the truth, We're all like dogs, we want someone to give us a collar, so we feel good.
I have a nice collar.
Yeah. And then when they lay you off, they take away your collar. I was, just a few weeks before I came here, I was coming out of the temple, our temple, and as I was walking out, this man came in a car, and then he opened his door, and then he pushed his dog out. And then the dog, it's a very beautiful looking dog, and then it came out and it was shocked. And then the man it was looking at the master, it shut the door and he drove away.
Oh.
So it was abandoned. And then the dog was looking everywhere and he's running in circles trying to follow. Other cars came, so he stopped. Then he came into the temple. It was very sad. And then he was running around the place the whole day looking for his master. So
That's how it will be.
there's a position of the living entity always looking
It's
for
like-
actually Krishna.
That's like Brahmacharya, living in Brahmacharya.
It's like we are all looking for Krishna, we're looking at the wrong places. 32. Dukeshvekarenapi
Dukeshvekarenapi
Daivabhutatma hetushu
Daivabhutatma hetushu
Jivasya navyavachiddaha
Jivasya navyavachiddaha
Syachet tattat pratikriya.
Syachet tattat pratikriya.
The living entities are trying to counteract different miserable conditions pertaining to providence, other living entities or the body and mind, the kleshas. Still, they must remain conditioned by the laws of nature, despite all attempts to counter these laws. So, due to providence means it is your karma. So, but you cannot run away from your karma. So, you have to face it. But we don't, so we fight it. And then there is problems caused by other living entities, like your mother-in-law, father-in-law, or the teachers. All these are different entities, dogs and so on. Mosquito, cockroach, like silverfish, bed bugs, all are different entities giving problem. And then your body and mind, right? Your body gets a bit pain, then your mind will say, oh, you got this problem. Then you go Google and find out, and there's 10 million problems with you. By the end of the day, you are really sick. This is how it is in this world, right? So Prabhupada says in the purport, couple of lines in the beginning, we can actually see in our daily lives how we are forced to make plans to drive away miserable conditions. To get rid of one miserable condition, we have to put ourselves in another kind of miserable condition. A poor man suffers for want of money, but he wants to become rich, he has to struggle in so many ways. Actually, that is not a valid counteracting process, but a snare of illusory energy. And that's a very good point. If one does not endeavor to counteract the situation but is satisfied with his position, knowing that he has obtained his position through past activities, he can instead engage his energy to develop Krishna consciousness. That is the verse from the 10th canto. Alright, Brahma says, right? Same verse, but Prabhupada paraphrases differently. So he says this is recommended in all Vedic literature. Prabhupada also gives in a conversation where he says, this is such a wealthy man, so wealthy, he would be, Prabhupada says he'll enjoy his life, womanizer, he had everything, he was a billionaire. And so one day he was sitting watching from his house at the street, he and his wife. So but as he was looking, his wife asked him, why are you looking so unhappy? You have everything, people look up to you, governors look up to you, ministers talk to you, you have everything, why are you not happy? Then he said, what do you want? Then at that time when they were looking out, then he saw this mendicant, like a sannyasi. He said, I want to be like him, because I am not as happy as he is. Yeah. So even a billionaire is not happy, because they have so many other problems that they have to go through. It's not easy. Everyone thinks a billionaire is happy. No, they have to every day try to work out so that they don't lose their money in government taxes. That's all they do.
Or stealing managers.
Or whatever, whoever is going to take their money, lawyers, all those people. Everyone's planning to take money from another person. And in the next paragraph, after the verse he quotes, right? So people who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end. That means end it, not prolong it, which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet, Brahmaloka, down to the lowest planet. So that's what we should be doing to stop this samsara. Brahmandi Brahmati Kona Bhagyavan Jiva. You have got to get
Guru Prasada.
You got to become Guru Krishna Prasada. You need to get the mercy. Somehow or other. At the end of that paragraph, Prabhupada writes, one who takes to the path of devotional service will never be vanquished. despite all miseries of the body and mind, and despite all misery brought about by other living entities and providence, miseries which are beyond our control. So basically, if you are really practicing Krishna consciousness, you don't get stuck in some problem, mundane things. Or you become so intelligent that you know you can't do anything about it. Yeah, let Krishna take care of it, and I will endure it, whatever the difficulty is, right? Sometimes as a student you study so hard, you memorize everything so nicely, but when you are writing the exam, suddenly you forget. Right? And you all experience that also. So then why? Why does it happen? Right? And then after the exam you remember everything.
Matta smriti jnanam.